Hi, good evening. You're welcome to The Point of View. The Point of View is your favorite current affairs program on television. On The Point of View, we select the right topic, bring relevant guests, and ask the pertinent questions. Tonight, we want to delve into some portions of the manifestos of the two major political parties, the NDC and NPP. We call it a big governance and infrastructure discussion or debate. And so a number of things have been promised in the manifestos, that they will deal with corruption in a certain manner, that they hope to improve the infrastructure of the country, etc. Aside from what has been said in the manifesto, there have been other discussions also on the fringes. We'll look at all of those and see what the candidates have been doing and saying to the people around the country. We'll take a short break, return, and then get a discussion underway. And as always, the show is live and interactive. You may want to join us by sending your text messages to the number that will be displayed on your screen. We'll take a short break, return with more. You're welcome back. This is The Point of View. We are live on Channel 1 television. Tonight, we're looking at the big governance and corruption debate, focusing on specific aspects of the manifestos of the two major political parties, the NDC and NPP. To help us do a discussion tonight, are Kofi Tonto, an A2, the Vice President and flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, and also Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, who is the parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Ebura Asebu Kwaman Kesi constituency, and also the spokesperson of the party on infrastructure. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You are home too. You can join us with your text messages, and we'll be happy to share them with the rest of the world. So let's get into it. So it's been one of reset and then lately upgrade. So I'll start off with you, Felix. You know, the NDC themed its manifesto, essentially resetting, you know, and jobs in there, accountability in there, development, etc. in there. What does the NDC mean that to say, or when it says that the country needs a resetting?
Well, the theme for the manifesto, which is dominated by a desire to reset our country, is absolutely necessary because of the state of affairs currently. Salom, our economy has simply been devastated. Today, we are in the midst of the harshest economic climate perhaps in our history. As I speak to you, Ghana has defaulted on its debt. We simply are unable to pay our debts. We become a source of mockery. As I speak to you today, the exchange rate is 16.6 cedis to $1. What that means is that if you are a businessman or in your everyday life, you need to transact some business and you need foreign exchange, you are going to have to pay far more than you used to pay under the NDC. Today, interest rates have gone through the roof. Today, our public debt is not manageable. And as I indicated earlier, we have defaulted on our debt. And mind you, the exchange rate is depreciating at a time when we are not servicing debt. In the last quarter of this year, we would have to pay about $450 million in terms of debt servicing. So you can imagine what will happen when that begins to take place. Corruption has become the order of the day. We have far and away the most corrupt government in our history, where nepotism is the order of the day, very little regard for decency, very little regard for law and order in terms of how governance is undertaken. We have a situation where our state institutions have been deliberately weakened and politicized, such that the judiciary, for instance, has witnessed its lowest level of public confidence, perhaps under the Fourth Republic. We have a situation where persons with known MPP coloration have been appointed to the Electoral Commission, to the judiciary, and other state institutions that are supposed to be independent. You have a situation where Galamsey, I mean, our country has been overrun by Galamsey. The Ghana Water Company has had to issue an SOS, a distress call, for public action because they are unable to, as it were, purify the water simply because of the turbidity levels arising out of Galamsey, which is taking place with governmental complicity. That is the only reason why Galamsey has not been brought under control because persons within this government and the MPP are actively involved in it. So there's no political will, despite the vast resources that the state has to address it. You talk about standards of living that have fallen dramatically. The hardships that we are facing are unprecedented. Today, a liter of fuel is more expensive than a gallon of fuel under the NDC. In a recent release by the Ghana Statistical Service, it said 8.5 million Ghanaians have gone without food for a day. In other words, a quarter of Ghana's population has in recent times gone without food for a day. Now, there's no greater indictment on a government than to have a situation where a quarter of your population are not able to find food for one day.
So Kofi, I mean, Felix made a case for the reset. Your side, I mean, lately has said that Ghana really doesn't need to reset anything. What we need is an upgrade. What are we upgrading? Why do you think that instead of a reset, given all that he has said have happened under your watch, we rather need an upgrade?
Well, thank you very much, and a very good evening to you and your cherished viewers. Selim, I'll be the first, and I've been on your show before, to admit the economic challenges we are currently facing. I mean, as Felix rightfully said, the issues relating to the currency and cost of living issues, inflation ballooning to 54%, etc. I mean, we've all witnessed the challenges that confronted our nation, particularly in 2022, subdued a bit 2023, and then picked up. But at least we've seen some degree of rebound in the inflation and all other indicators, even growth rate. The last growth rate we experienced was 4.7%. But we still have teethering challenges with our currency, and there's absolutely no debating about it. The government ought to do everything it needs to do to get the cedi back on track. Absolutely no issues there. But the bottom line is that the nation has achieved so much in the last 8 years in the face of all the challenges that confronted us. And so what we are saying is that, yes, we've gone through challenges, but we have also done so well in so many instances that we can only build on it and not to reset it. The question is, resetting to what? Resetting to 4 years of no electricity? Or resetting to the time where cholera was killing people? Or resetting exactly to when His Excellency said we've chewed the meat left to the bone? To what, really? Or resetting to when the NDC, you know, literally, their party's history killed people for very little. So the question is, are you resetting? I said their history, the PNDC,
the FRC.
Yeah, and all of that, their history. So what are we resetting to? To their history, to 1992, to when Jerry Rawlings came into power, to when John Mills came into power, to when Mahama came into power? When? Or 1957? Which year are we resetting to? Because if you are resetting to something. And I think that's the question we all have to ask. And when they tell us the year they are resetting to, we have to ask them why that particular year. You know. But what we are saying is that in the face of all these challenges, this nation has done so much. You can take education, for example. A recent research by Africa Education Watch, not me saying it, said that this government has invested 100 billion Ghana cedis in education from 2017 to 2022. That does not include 2023 and 2024. So if you add the average of about 20 billion a year, by the end of 2024, this government would have invested about 140 billion Ghana cedis. Even at the current prevailing rate, exchange rate, that's almost $10 billion in our education alone. This is not me saying it. This is independent research institutions saying it. 5.7 million young people have had access to education through the free SHS. When you look at even the quality of education, it has improved. When you look at infrastructure, it has greatly improved. When you look at universities, infrastructure at the various universities, go to UHAS, for example, go to Akumadan, a whole new university built. So when you go into sector by sector, you see the great strides we have made as a government. You can only build on that. You don't reset it. Let's take health, for example. We as a government have started and completed at least 40 hospitals from start to finish by this government.
40 hospitals.
40 hospitals. I have the list here. I can go through the list for you. We inherited about 17 hospitals that we inherited and have completed. I also have the list. Aside that, we have specialist hospitals like the Urology and Nephrology Center at Kolebu. I'm sure you are very much aware of it. The new Neurology and Nephrology Center that we've built. Completely new. UGMC Phase 2. This government built it. And we operationalized UGMC Phase 1 and built Phase 2. We have also built 428 CHIP compounds, over 200 health centers. So my point is, yes, we are faced with economic challenges, but in the face of the economic challenges, we have done more. We have done more. Now let's go into security, for example.
Yes, well, just to push back a bit on the Africa Education Watch thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
Of course, all that investment may be correct, but the Africa Education Watch did not leave it there. It also talked about attrition rate. Said that attrition rate in the north is 3%. You know, an average in the south is around 7%, which means that when people enter KG, a lot of them do not get to the top. They drop out on the way, especially in the north. These are difficulties or issues under your watch.
There are difficulties and issues.
So as we're talking about the positives, we must talk about the
that's
difficulties.
fine. But he spoke about the negatives. He didn't say. He didn't state a single positive.
So I gave both of you time. So now I'm interrogating what you said.
That's fine.
So that is a problem. What is the outcome? We go to school because of outcomes. If people go to school, they are not able to complete. I mean, they fall out or they drop out because of difficulties. Government should be addressing that.
No two ways about it, Selim. I didn't sit here to say that we've had a perfect educational system. What I am saying is that in the face of the challenges, we have done more. In the face of the challenges, we've been able to stand up as a nation and continue to pursue. The pursuit of excellence comes with so many challenges. I mean, there isn't a time in the history of our education system that you cannot cite a single problem in the education system, being it attrition, being it schools under trees, etc., being it food challenges, etc. You can state challenges in our education system from Kojo Wangra Pencil. Every single time we've had education in our nation, we've had challenges. But the bottom line is that, are we giving more young people access to education or not? Yes, we are. So are there problems? Yes, there are problems.
You asked reset to what? So, for example, in 2016, before this, I mean, the NDC left power, inflation was around 16%.
Yeah.
But we've seen inflation go to 54, now around 20. So when you look at it even in terms of the inflation, what will you tell somebody who says, okay, reset means that we're going to lower inflation?
But when the NDC came, inflation was what?
No, I'm making a point.
Go ahead.
When you look at the debt to GDP ratio, for example, NDC left it around 55.6, thereabout.
Rebase value? Okay.
Yes, I mean, at the time, so this is a rebase value. You took it to 104% or so, now moving around 80-something percent. I mean, somebody will say, okay, I want us to reset to that. When you look at even the exchange rate, NDC left it at around 4.7% or 4.7 CDs to the dollar. We're hovering around 16 CDs to the dollar. I mean, so these are, two stark realities. The first one obviously appears better than we are currently. So if somebody says, I want to reset, I'll prefer to go back to the time where things were a bit better. What do you say?
So why don't you prefer to go back to the time when the dollar was $1 to 1 CD?
No, but that's not in the discussion.
No, that's in the discussion.
No, the discussion.
No, the question is, we are resetting to what? You created the reset here. You stated the reset here as 2016. And I'm asking you, why don't you set the reset here to President Kufuor's time? Why are you setting it to 2016?
No, because the two of, I mean, it's a record of, what's the name, Mahama versus the record of Akufo-Addo stroke Bawumia. Kufuor is not in the picture, even though the party is. So that is the context.
John Dramani Mahama and His Excellency Atta Mills came to meet a record. Which record they built on. You get what I'm saying? So if you want to compare, you must go back to what they inherited and what they left and what we inherited and what we are going to leave. So the question is, if you set the parameter to 2016, why can't I set it to 2009 when President Kufuor was leaving office?
I see.
That's the point. So the thing is that this nation has made so much positive strides in so many sectors, in so many areas, and we can only continue to build on it. You don't reset a nation. You fix challenges with a nation, and you continue and you build on your successes.
Felix,
a few corrections before I move on to the substantive. First of all, the NDC was formed in 1992. We have not killed even a chicken.
No, he's talking about the antecedents.
Yeah, but we are talking about the NDC and the MPP. They
but
also
you have a history.
No, Kofi,
Felix, you have a history.
I kept quiet.
Okay, sorry.
So do you.
Yes,
so
that's
you
fine.
actually have an antecedents dating back to the National Liberation Movement, which at the time that it was formed, was declared a terrorist organization by the Nkrumah government. And I could go on and on about what they did. But in more recent history, the only government under whom people have died in elections is the MPP. 8 people were killed, gunned down by thugs, executive operatives associated with this government. The NDC has no such record. Why? We also had a West Ogun terrorist attack. That is what I call it. You put men in balaclava, give them sophisticated weapons to go and shoot at people who had committed no crime. So if we were to speak about a record of violence, the MPP carries the can without any debate. Number 2, they have not built a phase 2 of VGMC.
Hey.
Please, let me make the point.
There's a phase 2,
Kofi, let me make the point.
of the
Don't
development.
even go there.
Why should we not go
don't
there?
even
No,
go there.
Kofi,
No,
no,
Kofi,
Kofi,
allow him
Okay,
to
you
go
go
there.
you are simply being overconfident.
Okay, sure.
I am going right there.
Okay, go ahead.
They didn't build anything in phase 2. The UGMC consists of 8 separate buildings, all of which by January 4th, 2017 were in place. They've not added any new building. The project cost $217 million. It was a 650-bed hospital that we left. The only addition is an 8-unit bungalow. Phase 1 had a 32-unit bungalow. When you add an 8-unit bungalow, you don't say that you build phase 2. There were also soft additions like IT, connectivity, and training of staff.
Yeah, so these are obviously
So when you
improvements
say
made.
no,
And who defines what phase 2 is? So phase 2 is the second
when you say
part of
you
it.
have built phase 2, you get the impression that when you go to UGMC now, you see any additional structure.
But the housing
But
units and all of
that comes nowhere near what phase 1 was.
Yeah, but phase 1, it doesn't mean phase 1 and phase 2 must be of the same magnitude.
No, but the way he speaks about it, you will think that they've done anything significant. You only happen
And
to have
they
won the election.
operationalized it.
You only happen to have won the election. So you were going to have to operationalize it anyway. Even then, it took 2 solid years of excuse making and feet dragging. It had to take a lone protester to get things fixed in that place for the hospital to start receiving patients. There was electricity available, and yet the Minister of Health claimed there was no electricity. So please, you have not built a phase 2. It was designed as a 1,000-bed hospital. So the most you can do is to add additional beds. But all the 8 buildings were in place as of January 4th, 2017, when President Mahama commissioned it. By September 2016, it had been fitted with equipment. And indeed, anybody watching me can go to my Facebook page, click on September 16, 2016. I put up pictures of the inside.
So what's the
of
status
UGMC.
with the number of beds there? Still 650 beds, or the
Now
number
it is
of beds?
1,000 beds.
Okay, so that's
But
quite something.
if you say you have built, what have you built? You've not built any additional structure.
So that, meaning the second phase of it
You
is
add
been
beds.
improved.
You add
So
beds.
so
But
that's
compare
significant.
the cost of the project alone, 217 to 48.
But
There's no basis
Felix,
for comparison.
the first phase and the second phase may not cost the same. But
Because
what
they are
is-
not the same
Yeah,
project.
what is
That's the
important
point.
is that some additions have been made. They choose
Why
to call
not?
it
Why
the
not?
phase
Same way we came in and did
They
additions.
chose to call it phase
Same way
2.
we came in and did additions. Why? President Kufuor has started some work on the Winneba Trauma Hospital. We came and completed it. There was a hospital at Takwa that President Mills inherited that he completed. But in terms of health infrastructure, they don't come close. Not one of the agenda 1 hospitals has been completed. The 40 hospitals he talks about are small hospitals, comparable to polyclinics. When President Mahama was leaving, 20 polyclinics had been worked on. 20 polyclinics had been worked on. Over 1,200 CHIPS compounds had been opened. Dozens of health centers had been opened. We had regional hospitals open. As we speak, they don't have one regional hospital completed. Not one in their name. So I don't even know why he's going to halt. But the other point that must be made, you see, come to education, for instance. He says they spent 100 billion. And yet, Education Watch says Between 2017 and now, the number of schools under trees have increased to 5,400. When we were in power, we eliminated close to 3,000 of them. They have not done even 1,000 as I speak to you in the last 4 years. In the last 8 years, pardon. You come to senior high schools. We completed and finished 46 different secondary schools. I'm not talking about classroom blocks. Different secondary schools. There were another 27 that were completed that were yet to be finished. How many secondary schools, for instance, have they established? They have about 8 or so. He speaks about tertiary institutions, universities. We have UHAS. We have UNE, the University of Development and Sustainable Development in Somenya. Was a project that President Ama found money for. He cut short for it. All they did was to take the money and do construction. That one can be done by anybody.
But recently, President began the phase 2 also, phase 2 again.
No problem.
Of
it
UHAS.
Is no problem.
So the question is, do you improve
absolutely
the existing institutions we have, or you just go for the sake of credit getting or credit taking, later them around?
No, the problem is this. Since Get Fund was launched, money has been available to expand infrastructure in all universities. I attended K University, and I know the massive expansion that the NDC did between 2009 and 2017. So expansion, great. Every government will do it. But in terms of establishing the institution, the NDC stands tall. Why? When you go back to 1992, for instance, or was it 1993, when President Rawlings set up UDS, for instance, you add it to the stock of the NDC's university. We are talking about 6 of them. So really, I don't think that even when it comes to infrastructure, the figures that they mention correspond with the actual work. Look at water provision, for instance. Between 2009 and 2017, when we left power, we added 110.9 million gallons a day additional capacity to what we came to meet. That moved water, production
and access
from 54% to 76%. They haven't done much in that area. So look at the energy sector. We have added close to 4,000 megawatts in generation capacity. How much have they added, for instance? Same can be said for housing, communications, and what have you. But you see, this election is going to be premised on the economy. That is the number 1 item on the table. And rightly so. He says that we should reset to the Kufuor era. The truth is that the best economic period under this Fourth Republic has been under the NDC. Between 2009 and 2012, the highest ever economic growth of 14.4% was achieved by the NDC government.
But that was mainly due to oil,
Well, they had 2 additional oil fields when they came to power. Indeed, under them, oil production increased by 80%. And the highest growth they could get was 8%. That 8% is the 3rd highest in the NDC's repertoire, recorded in 2010. In 2012, we grew by 9.2%. Even in 2013, we grew by 7.2%. By November 2016, the World Bank had projected that we will grow by 7.5% because of the investments we had made in additional oil fields.
I see.
Look at inflation. We kept inflation a single digit for 33 straight months. Never happened in our history. Again, he speaks about the exchange rate. Salom, there can be no comparison whatsoever between the exchange rate now and under the NDC. It was 4 cedis to $1, not 4.7 cedis. 4 cedis to $1. There are some who even insist that it is 3.8 cedis. But let us take 4 cedis. It was not 4.7. Today, I have done a transaction at the Forest Bureau in Laboni. It is 16.6 cedis. That is a catastrophic decline in the value of the currency. But you see, the reason why I harp on the exchange rate is that his flag bearer, Mahamudu Bawumia, in that infamous 2014 lecture at Central University, people remember him for the phrase, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But there's another statement that he made. He says the most important indicator for economic management is the exchange rate.
I see.
So when the exchange rate goes to 16.6% from 4 cedis, that is catastrophic failure. Salom, also, look at what this has done.
I want to take a break. So let me take a short break.
I think I should respond.
No, you respond. But I'm going to do it twice on that. So we'll take a short break. We'll come back. We'll look at other areas. So we'll look at Galamsey. It has become topical this week. And we'll look at even the quest to reduce the size of government. They both say they want to run a lean government. What does that mean? We'll ride by with more answers on that. Don't go away. This is the point of view. You're welcome back. This is the Point of View on Channel 1 Television. My guest this evening, Kofi Tonto, aide to the flag bearer of the NPP and Vice President of the Republic, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, and also Felix Ofosu-Kwakye is a parliamentary candidate for the Ebura Sebu Kwamwan Kese constituency in the Central Region, and also spokesperson of the NDC on the matter of infrastructure. They are my guests tonight. Kofi, corruption. I mean, corruption was a major issue in 2016, and a lot of things were said about corruption before you came to office. But many have said that very little has been done about it in terms of accountability. We only see accountability on the side of the former government. In your own government, we've seen very little about the government taking on its own people for corruption. Nonetheless, the perception of corruption is been deepened or is grown. Indeed, the Transparency International says that we've stagnated in how we have progressed with our fight against corruption, at least for the perception. And the NDC guys say that your best is their worst at 43 or so. What do you have to say about that? And what concrete steps has Mahmoud Bawumia and the NPP got in the manifesto to tackle the issue of corruption?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me very quickly respond to Felix on the UGMC bit. You know, there's a video of President Mahama, I believe it was January 6 or so, 2017, and I stand to be corrected on the exact date, where former president was commissioning the UGMC. At the day of the commissioning, he said something very emphatic. He said, I'm leaving the equipping of this facility and the operationalization of this facility to my successor. He said that emphatically. I have the video. I can look for it and for you to play.
So the point is that it was built but it was not equipped. Is that the point?
The President Mill started it at 217 million. It was a project through the Israeli bank. They built it. The NDC built phase 1. The phase 1 was commissioned but was not operationalized, was not equipped. President Akufo-Addo did that.
So equipped, I want to understand equipped. What equipped means?
So there are certain machineries. Yes, there are certain.
Were not there.
Yes, certain machineries.
So it was just a shell.
The building was there. There were some minor equipments that were there. The big machines that they needed, the equipments that they needed to operationalize the place was not in place. And then also the power plant to power the entire facility was not also in place. Everything came at a cost of 30 million United States dollars for equipping and operationalizing the place. Now, 2, we built phase 2.
And so the phase 2 consists of what?
Yeah, phase 2. I have it's a long list. If you want me to read, I can read it. But this is a statement by the Vice Chancellor at the commissioning of University of Ghana Medical Center phase 2. This happened on June 17, 2022. And I would like to read just the relevant portion for you. Okay, it says, today, we are witnessing the commissioning of phase 2 of the project, which began in 2019 and was completed in December 2021 under the leadership of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. This is the Vice Chancellor, Professor Nana Abba
what goes into the phase 2?
Oh, I'll tell you what goes into.
Because he mentioned a number of structures they are put in place. And so
I'll
maybe
tell you,
are there new structures
there are about
that you added
18 things that went into phase 2. For example, the building of new pediatric ER center, building new gynecology center, providing and equipping IVF unit building, private delivery building 2, private inpatient 28 private room and 5 double-bedded rooms. It goes on and on. I can forward it to you.
So these are furnishings, or these are
no. I
real
told you
hard
buildings. I said building of new pediatric ER center, building of gynecology center, building of staff accommodation, several things.
I see.
At a cost of 40 million pounds.
I see.
That's,
so great.
So
now
the fact is that
deal with the corruption issue for me.
Phase 2 and operationalized phase 1. This is not me saying it.
Great.
I have read it from the speech of the Vice Chancellor. So
Fine.
let nobody create any false
UGMC
impression
appears
here.
like a big one, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
let's make progress and
Now,
deal with the issue of corruption.
On the issue of corruption, what His Excellency the Vice President has argued is that often we look at the issue post event, when it has happened, and is when we try to sort of curtail or punish people, etc. Of course, that is very necessary. But we must look at preventative measures that will ensure that we reduce corruption before it even happens. And that is why for him, digitalization is a key instrument in fighting corruption because digitalization allows you to reduce corruption before it even happens. And he even cites several examples. For example, he talks about the Ghana card helping to remove 44,000 ghost names in the National Service Scheme, 29,000 ghost names in the Social Security Scheme. That's saving us about 800 million Ghana cedis. That is a measure that allows us to remove ghost names before they even take the money. So you have to look at preventative measures. But before I go into detail, there are a lot of things this government has done.
But the issue of ghost names have lived with us for a very long time.
Yes,
we started using the Ghana card, I mean, for some years now.
Yeah.
Just this year, I mean, May, we're told that some 34 million Ghana cedis has been saved from ghost names. The point I'm making is that the ghost names continue to come. I don't know how, despite having the Ghana card and despite having all these systems we talk about today.
There may be some loopholes that may cause it. I don't know. I have to even see the story you are reading,
so
the cause of it, etc.
Okay.
But at least for argument's sake, there may be a reason. I don't know what the reason is. But the fact remains that we've been able to remove 44,000 ghost names from the National Service Scheme. We've been able to remove 29,000 from Social Security. Let's even assume we've not been able to remove everything. That's a huge savings. Of course, you can't fight corruption to zero. And that is why...
But there's a part of accountability too. So if persons who have... So this is stopping it before it happens.
Yeah.
Some persons have engaged in corrupt acts.
Okay.
The country's lost money, etc. Okay. What have we done to those people, apart from persons in the previous government?
If you give me examples of persons who have done
so for example,
you want us to go through it, we can't because we have laws in this country.
So for example, perceptions. Yeah. Okay. Perceptions sometimes must be investigated. But we've seen very little of those.
Perceptions like what?
So,
how do you investigate perception?
No, I mean, if there's
a prima facie.
No, so you investigate to get to the prima facie. The investigations will establish the prima facie. Okay. So, for example, we have issues about persons taking visa racketeers, collecting money from our sports people, or persons adding them to a sports team, taking them to a country. Today, the Australian gold, I mean, the Australian, what was the name? Matter, where deaf and dumb people were sent to Australia for the Gold Coast Games also. I mean, nothing concrete has come out of that.
Salim, when you give me specific...
The Commonwealth Games, nothing concrete has come out of
that. I remember the story.
And there are quite a number of the SML. We're not saying these are corrupt deals.
Yeah, but SML, the president...
But questions
you spoke
have been
about
asked.
prima facie. SML, the president asked KPMG to investigate it. KPMG came up with a report. The president put out a white paper. Subsequently, the president put out the entire report. That is the president doing what the president ought to do. The president is not clothed with the powers to prosecute people. There are institutions, the Attorney General, etc., who have the right to prosecute people. The president did his part. The president did his part. Investigate it. Put out all the findings public. What else can the president do aside from doing his part? He's done it. So, my brother, the point is that aside from all of these things, this government has enacted the Right to Information Act. That's allowed a lot. For example, Manasseh has come out with several reports which he sourced the information using the Right to Information Act. Is that not so? So that is a form of fighting corruption. They're enacting the Witness Protection Act, enacting the Criminal Offences Amendment Act,
establishing the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
All of that.
So these are
all the
measures that the government has put in place to deal with the matters of corruption.
To deal with matters of corruption.
Felix, how is the NDC hoping to deal with corruption?
Yes,
we see the oral, the operation, cover all
I'll come to that presently. But you see, this UGMC matter must be put to rest. You see, the evidence of what you've done at UGMC is what you physically see there when you go. It is not any speech read by anybody. You see, Kofi, I have kept quiet throughout the time, please extend me the same courtesy. You see, Salom, anybody watching me, if you Google my name, 24th September 2016, I put out over 30 different pictures of the inside of UGMC to show the equipment that had been installed. Salom, they did not equip UGMC for $30 million. The hospital is organized in clinics. You see, those 8 buildings that you see there, which have been there since 2017, are organized into clinics. So they operationalize some of them, including the simulation center, which requires some software, some computer equipment.
They built a gynae center.
Which gynae center? So let them show you the gynae center they built. This is mine. Here. You see state-of-the-art equipment. 30 different pictures of
Very well.
So let us. I'm saying that the only physical addition is an 8-unit bungalow, or if you like, staff accommodation.
So
before
I'll
that, phase 1 had 32 bungalows, staff accommodation.
Very
So
well.
that must be
so
put to rest.
let's deal with corruption.
Now again, you see, Bawumia is in government. Every ill that there is in this government in terms of corruption, he also practices.
As in how?
He practices the same nepotism that President Akufo-Addo practices. As I speak to you, his father-in-law, his brother-in-law, his own brother are all in government.
But he's not the appointing authority.
Well,
The question is, are they competent?
Salom, please. You see, you cannot hate pork and eat pork soup. Bawumia in 2016, in fact, there is a tweet of his which I will fish out and send to you, in which he condemned sole sourcing and said that the MPP will not practice him. The moment he came into power, his brother, he is called Abraham Bawumia, some call him Ibrahim Bawumia, became the recipient of multiple sole source contracts. I am submitting, but for his brother, he would not receive those sole source contracts. How can Bawumia say that he was against sole sourcing in opposition and gleefully allow sole sourcing to take place when he is vice president?
So sole sourcing is a legitimate way to award contracts.
No, but at the time that Bawumia was
so I thought what he was referring to was how, in his view,
but how else is sole sourcing that?
It was being abused.
No, Salom, how else is sole sourcing that? The fact show that over 80% of contracts awarded at this government has been through sole sourcing. The vice president's brother is a recipient of sole source contracts. Meanwhile, this is a man condemning sole sourcing in the past. And it has come to light that the sole source contracts given to him were also inflated. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa has put out documents to this effect. In addition to that, the same nepotism that President Akufo-Addo has taken the flag for, he practices. His relatives are in this government. President Mahama didn't do so. So if you cannot observe the basic ethical standards of governance, you cannot speak to us about corruption. Number 2, where has he been in the midst of all this corruption? The SML deal. Essentially, they are paying hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis to an entity to basically do nothing. Replicate the same thing that Standards Board, FDA, and NP and others are doing.
But the president cost KPMG.
But the contract still persists.
You know, so there was a second phase of the contract.
The contract persists.
There was a second phase of the contract.
But even the first phase of the contract.
That the president said should not.
But the first phase of the contract, which civil society organizations have condemned, your media organization has highlighted that first phase on many occasions still persists, and they are being paid for work that they have not done. The Australia visa scandal, we know for a fact that people were taken to Australia posing as journalists when they were not. The president said he had commissioned an investigation. On the eve of an MPP delegates conference, he says that the people who were mentioned have been cleared. Yet, till date, we have not been told who took those people to Australia. We know for a fact that they were taken. So the Moving Pina scandal, for instance. Look at the National Cathedral. How sordid and opaque the procurement processes were. So this government has practiced the worst forms of corruption. You highlighted the Transparency International reports, which show that perceptions have worsened. And you see, people build perceptions based on what they see. They don't dream up those perceptions. Their best performance is actually our worst performance. But even if you were to cast aside the data and conduct a visceral assessment of the situation, everybody knows that this is the most corrupt government in our history. So President Mahama says he will launch what he calls Operation Recover All Loot, under which inquiries will be launched into such matters as the management of the COVID-19 funds, expenditures under the SML transaction, the Japan transaction, the mass search procurement, PDS, where Bawumia, the vice president, sat in a meeting and lowered the requirements for PDS from a bank guarantee to an insurance guarantee, which then meant that they did not meet the strict requirements that was set. And we all know what happened. They walked away with hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis, which they are yet to refund. So we will look into that. They paid $2 million to an entity in South Africa for no work done under the guise of building out SkyTrains.
They said they did feasibility studies.
With feasibility studies, how does it cost $2 million and nothing happens? With feasibility studies cost $2 million. In today's terms, that is about 32 million Ghana cedis. How can we waste money like that?
So,
the ambulance spare parts,
won't this amount to witch hunting?
Witch hunting? There's no. These are inquiries into the matters. As I speak to you, they have taken a number of NDC appointees to court. But when it comes to MPP appointees, nobody is in court. What do you call it? The procurement scandal involving Mr. Ajenimeji. Where did it end? The $1 million found.
Cleared him.
The $1 million found under his underpass bed. The one involving the National Youth Authority.
I mean, the office of the special
one involving the National Youth
Authority.
Authority.
And the Yoko have been on that.
But when it comes to NDC appointees, they are taken straight to court. So, Salom, as for corruption, everybody knows that whichever way you look at it, this is the most corrupt government in history. Now, let me come to ministers. Now, Bamia also says
let me take a break, come back, and
right.
we'll deal with the show, Lingam, etc. Perhaps that'll be our last matter we'll be dealing with on the show today. This is the point of view. I mean, interesting discussions going on. I mean, interjections reduced to the barest minimum so we can hear them speak, really. We'll take a short break. We'll return and now come back to what the parties hope to do in terms of reducing the size of government. Don't go away. This is a point of view. We are looking at the manifestos of the two parties, looking at governance and infrastructure. We've dealt with infrastructure somewhat. We looked at governance generally, but we'll continue to look at governance. Now, the two parties have said they will reduce the size of government. Mahama started by saying that he will reduce the size of, the number of ministers to 60. Bawumia said he will make it 50 and all of that. But they've not told us which ministries would be scrapped and how that will happen. I'll start with you, Felix. If you say you reduce the size of government or the ministerial list to 60, which ministries, in your view, are not important, and how will you make up for their absence in your government? Should people allow you or people vote for you to come to power? Well, also, the size of government, or do you equate the size of government to be number of ministers? Because we can have ministers being few, but the size of government itself could be big. Office of the government machinery, etc. A lot of money goes there.
Sure, true. First of all, you must establish a premise that the size of government, as it is currently composed, is too wasteful. Look, there was a time in the very recent past under this government when there were 125 ministers.
110, that was the height.
Yes, but it was 125.
I think it went to 125. I know about 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, yes. Let's say 1, 2, 3.
I mean, the very first.
Which was inordinately large. So, which then begs the question as to what Bawumia has been doing all this time. And you know that in all that period, he didn't offer a whimper, not a single public disagreement with the size of government. So when it comes to tell you that he will reduce the size of government, you know right away.
Listen about public disagreement. You expect the vice president to come out and say, I disagree with my president.
You see, when you tell me that there's something going on here, wait for me to become president before I change it. You see, you make mockery.
But he might have spoken about it.
There's something called
secret.
There's something called politics of conviction. You see, if you believe it is wrong, you tackle it right there and then. You don't wait till the government leaves power. So it leaves significant doubts about the authenticity and genuineness of the claim. I don't believe a man who is part of a 123 size government who says he will reduce it. The other issue is that you rightly made the point that the size of government does not relate to only ministers. Indeed, President Mahama has made a commitment that there will be no 1,000 office of government machinery staff under him. As we speak, there are close to 350 political appointees at the presidency. President Mahama says that will not happen. It will be reduced drastically. Also, the institutions of state, the various agencies that are duplicating the functions of existing entities will be abolished. For instance, what do we need a 1D, 1F office for? The Ministry of Trade has been doing trade facilitation and facilitating the
constitution. Because of the special
focus. What special focus?
They need to
Salom, I can give you a list of over 140 factories established when the NDC was in power by private sector players. We didn't need a special secretariat to do that. There are already existing institutions like the Free Zones Board, the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, and even the Ministry of Trade. They have an industrial section in that ministry that can do it. Salom, what again do we need a free SHS secretariat for? The Ministry of Education, through the Ghana Education Service, which has been in existence for about 80 years, has sufficient capacity to coordinate the payment of fees for students at SHS. We don't need a whole secretariat to do that. They have all manner of amorphous creations that are only duplicating the existing practices of agencies that have been in existence for a long time. President Mahama says he will do away with it. In addition to this, are some costs that traditionally Ghanaians have borne, which we can do away with. One of them is ex-gratia. Yes, I have taken ex-gratia before. President Mahama has taken ex-gratia before. So has all governments and all leaders after him.
To take it?
I don't take ex-gratia. I don't take no, absolutely not. I took ex-gratia in 2017, just like President Akufo-Addo took when he was minister under President Kufuor. So I have never taken ex gratia in my capacity as an aide to former President Mahama. That lie must end. But the point I seek to make is that yes, we've taken ex gratia in the past, but there comes a time when you draw a line in the sand. The people of Ghana have expressed, if you like, outrage. Every 4 years, it becomes a ritual. The outrage that is expressed, we must be sensitive to those concerns. So President Mahama says he is going to scrap the payment of ex gratia. In addition to that, there are some allowances and perks which, quite frankly, are not necessary. People like Kofi and myself, if we are in government, should be able to buy our own petrol in the same way that you buy your petrol from your salary. We should be able to pay for our DSTV. We should be able to pay for rent if we are not living in government accommodation and all that. So President Mahama says he will do away with those specs. To make some savings, at least it will send a certain signal to the electorate when you call on them to tighten their belts in times of difficulty. So all of these will be done with a view to restoring confidence in government. Because mind you, the public is increasingly losing confidence in the government institutions because they believe that we become a burden on them and that we are only guzzling funds that should go into critical areas. Again, we have spoken about barring all public office holders and politically exposed persons from acquiring state assets. And Salom, in the last week or so, it has come to light there are people in this government, ministers of state, who have purchased land in cantonments for as low as 190,000 Ghana cedis, which in today's terms should be just around $11,000. Salom, you know that land in that place about $700,000 a plot. So it is bad enough that people even sought to acquire state assets. But look at the ridiculous rate at which they bought it. President Mahama says once he becomes president, not a bed in his government will qualify to buy anything in any way, shape, or form that relates to state assets. He has also said that, look, there must be some reforms in the way that some funds that are earmarked for the public's benefit, for instance, scholarships, the way that scholarships are awarded are not proper. How does a member of parliament, for instance, like Napo, go for a scholarship? How does Adwa Safo, an MP, go for a scholarship?
Capacity building.
What capacity can he build? Can he not build on his own accord?
Why so he's using that capacity to help the institutions of state?
I went to school, I paid my own fees. They go about saying that I didn't have scholarship. I paid my own fees. I use that capacity to help government, right? Napo should be in a position to afford that. Personal development is something you do for yourself. But those who deserve scholarship are those who have the capacity but do not have the requisite funds because of their poor backgrounds. And President Mahama says he will restore this essence to the award of scholarships in this country and many other.
Very well.
Finally, a final point for you. I'm sure he will grant me that. He has also said that he will carry out reforms in governance institutions to restore the independence, credibility, and public acceptability of critical state institutions. So constitutional amendments will be done, which then seek to reform the way in which these government institutions practice with a view to making them
does appear
stronger
that the
and
two
more
sides
independent.
are agreed on a few points. Ex gratia scrapping, constitutional amendments, etc.
Except that I would say that they were forced into those positions because
Well,
of the positions
we don't know
because
that.
there have been before President Mahama said this, Bawumia had not demonstrated
What does
any disagreement.
what does your link government? What does your future? Don't worry about that. What does a lean
Before
government
Baba said
in
it,
the
where
future
Bawumia said this?
for you look like?
I will speak to that. First of all, you have been a president before. You didn't cancel ex gratia. When you had all the powers to cancel it, you did it. But somehow you have an issue with someone who has not been a president before, saying that he will cancel ex gratia. This is hypocritical. Then Phyllis sits here and tells me, Bawumia has been part of a government that was 123 ministers. So Bawumia doesn't have the credibility to say he's going to reduce it to 50. First of all, per our constitution, is Bawumia the person who appoints ministers? Does Bawumia have the power to tell the president to appoint or not to appoint anybody? Absolutely not. But there is evidence of you. You have been in power. President Mahama appointed 86 ministers. Where is his credibility? He has none. He was actually the president. Where is the credibility of John Mahama, who had 86 ministers, to now tell us he's going to reduce it to 60? He has none, Felix. So that argument is moot. Now, lastly, Felix raises the issue of if Bawumia has an issue with the government, he should come out and say it. Where from this? Quite infantile, respectfully. President Mahama was a vice president for 3.5 years. Did you see President Mahama coming out to complain to Ghanaians that I agree with this or I didn't agree with this. But we can safely assume that when he was a vice president, it was not every decision that he agreed with. That's human life. But President Mahama didn't come out and bastardize his boss. That my boss did this and this and that, and so I'm coming out to say my boss was not. You saw quite hypocritical. So you shouldn't make that argument. Now let's come to the lean government. His Excellency the Vice President has said that he has a different vision. And his vision and style will be different. Therefore, he doesn't need a certain number of ministers to be able to achieve his vision. He has said that he wants to build a world-class digital society, meaning as much as possible, he will cut out the redundancies using technological platforms. So he doesn't need more than 50 ministers. He's also spoken about the fact that he wants to, one, leasing of cars versus buying cars. As a government, we are always buying new cars, etc. He says that no, why don't we lease it? He talks about travels, for example, for ministers and appointees, to reduce it to a certain number and then also publish it. Publish the cost, publish the travels that you made to the public. That will serve as a deterrent to ensure that people who travel are doing the right travels that will bring full maximum benefit to the nation. He talks about scholarships, bringing scholarship into a single center, one center, to ensure that there are no duplications. Because as it stands, I can take a scholarship from Scholarship Secretariat, go and take a scholarship from Get Fund. But now we have an anchor,
GMPC,
which is the Ghana card. So if you harmonize everything into one central platform, what happens is that if Kofi goes to GMPC and Ghana Scholarship Secretariat, right away, the unique identification will expose that indeed you have already acquired.
So that's credit to the Ghana card.
Yeah, of course. It's been fantastic in helping us eradicate a lot of duplication, corruption, etc. So there are so many other measures that the government, His Excellency's government, wants to put in place. But first and foremost, reduce the ministries to 50.
But do we know which ministries?
He has a fantastic idea of what they are going to be. He's not. At the right time, he will share it.
Very well.
But I know for a fact that he's done a great deal of work on it.
Just to take 30 seconds to conclude thoughts.
Yeah, it's there's a bit about if you have a disagreement with your boss, keep it till you become president. It's not tenable. Look, we've had a vice president, Aka. As for him, he was prepared to go toe to toe to stand by his convictions.
So John Mahama never disagreed with
John Mahama has never moved away from anything that Mills did. Bawumia has spoken in ways that suggest that he will move. For instance, he says he will abolish a number of taxes. Meanwhile, he is the head of the economic management team that has imposed over 40 different taxes. How can we believe
what 40 different taxes?
Oh, if you had time, I'll go through it.
You can't just put out these things. You can't just put out these things. You can't do that.
Just wait.
And then on the fee levy,
I've shown you a lot of respect.
Bawumia
has been the head of the economic management team. He has imposed 40 different taxes. E-levy, sanitation levy, COVID levy, the luxury car tax, the extension of taxes that had elapsed, and 40 of them. When I finish, I'll give you a list.
I want to
absolutely,
see that.
you can publish it. So I'm saying that how can you be?
Because what we have is about 22.
It's not
because
true.
you've not added the taxes on fuel.
Lie.
Okay.
You've not added the taxes on fuel.
I see. But I want to see. I want to see your 40 list. But we did
not a
analysis.
problem. I'll give it to you before I leave. But the point is this: I'm saying that what he says lacks credibility. If you are in a government that is 123, you didn't offer a whimper, no criticism, nothing. Look, there are people in this government. They publicly voiced disagreement and they were prepared to lose their positions for it.
And they did.
But if you're a politician of convenience, you want to stick with the status quo to preserve yourself. And then when your opponent puts pressure on the government, you quickly come around to the same things he's saying. Nobody will believe you.
Very
That's the point.
Your boss has no credibility.
Oh, he has
absolutely
never
no credibility.
Allow him to learn.
Your boss has zero credibility.
But your boss says he's a myth.
Zero.
At the same time, he's in charge of
credibility.
Zero. He's in charge of policies.
Let him learn.
No problem.
When he had the chance to even punish his appointees who went to Brazil to sell kenke, he called them to his office to come to my presidency. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. You see, that JIDA report, do you know the day Mahama released that JIDA report?
No, please.
But it was released.
Oh, please.
Guys, I mean,
and you released it 12 a.m. You released it 12 a.m. on August 23rd. On August 23rd, the day of the Supreme Court verdict. That was the day you released it because you didn't want people to see it. You didn't want people. Of course, it matters. Of course.
All right, so this is how we conclude today's edition. Point of view, your microphones are out.
Ajenim was investigated by SHAG.
Point of view. My name is Salam Adonu. I'm starting for your regular host, Bernard Abdel. Have a good evening.